And now, the survival show that once survived hanging curtain rods with the wife. In this episode, we go back to basics with a beginner's guide to preparedness. A much requested episode, even by some longtime practitioners. Howdy and welcome to In the Rabbit Hole's Urban Survival Podcast. This is episode number 281. I'm your host, Aaron, and you are in the rabbit hole. Safe and sound. There are 5 things we're going to cover today. 1. What is practical preparedness? 2. What are the 3 aspects of practical preparedness? 3. What things make up the basic 8, and in what order should they be prioritized? 4. Why is it important to review and reconsider your preps often and at regular intervals? 5. What is the number one thing new preppers do wrong? Let's begin. Practical preparedness is preparing by starting with the most likely mundane threats to your well-being and happiness. Then work your way out to the extreme. It is measured, meaningful, and methodical. Focus is put on prioritized order of the basic 8, and your preparedness is reviewed and reconsidered often and on a regularly scheduled interview. There's a lot of ands. It is measured in that you consider the probability of the things that are a threat to you. Then you prioritize how you will address and prepare for them. If you are heavily in debt, is it wise to spend $7,000 on a pallet of freeze-dried food to prepare for an event with a low probability? Of course not. But we often find ourselves rationalizing and explaining away the irrational that we desire to do. We overestimate the probability of the improbable at the expense of what is probable. If a friend did this, you'd tell them they were out of their minds and being irresponsible, right? Be your own best friend. Think critically, and don't be afraid to force a timeout to take the contrarian stance long enough to evaluate what you're doing. And what is meant by meaningful and how does it apply? Meaningful is tightly related to measured. It means the majority of your activities in and around preparedness positively impact your preparedness and your life today. I'll repeat that. In the beginning, what you're expending time, energy, or money on should positively impact your preparedness and your life in the present and near future. Having a 3-year supply of toilet paper is cool and all, but are you prepared for a dead vehicle battery with jumper cables? Great, you've got cables. Do you have a self-jump battery pack? Methodical in that we review the basic 8 categories for survival and plan to move through them at a reasonably achievable pace. Now, you've probably been wondering, what are the basic 8? There are 8 primary categories we'll use to ensure your basic needs are met. Reviewing each of these helps you avoid wandering down the rabbit hole without direction. In order of importance, the categories are 1. Body temperature. 2. Water. 3. Rest. 4. Food. 5. Health. 6. Security and mobility. 7. Contact. And 8. Information. It is likely that this list is not new to you. However, the order and kind of the way it was said probably is. We'll run through these quickly to explain why. But keep in mind this list is situational dependent and all of these are interdependent on one another. Besides a lack of air, being able to maintain 98.6 degrees Fahrenheit, 37 degrees Celsius for those of you who are into that kind of thing, is your first, primary, most biggest, and other grammatically incorrect things concern. Sustaining the appropriate body temperature can be as much about staying warm as it does cool. Most experts on the subject of survival would use the word shelter in place of body temperature. The two are interchangeable for our purposes, but I've specified body temperature because it is what shelter is protecting And I want you to think about it clearly. I want you to have it locked away in your brain and understand that shelter really is about protecting body temperature. You can only go 3 days without water. This fact places it above food, usually in the order they put food above water. I don't know why. Keep in mind that most people are walking around dehydrated as it is because they don't drink enough water. You will experience severe headaches, fatigue, and confusion quickly when dehydration becomes more serious. Your ability to store and treat ample supplies of water is vital. Next, the current world record for going without sleep is 11 days. I can't even imagine. The longest I've personally ever gone is 3 days, and that was in college, and I can't imagine going longer. That's 11. That's just crazy town. Here's the thing. A lack of rest plays absolute havoc on your higher level cognitive abilities. You know, that super important survival tool you have between your ears and right behind your brain. Yeah, really messes with that. We've all experienced that before. However, rest is also about keeping your mind occupied or giving it rest from an ordeal. This respite is why you will often see a deck of playing cards suggested for inclusion in a kit or bug out bag. Returning to food, you can go 3 weeks without food. For this reason, food falls lower on the list than the previously mentioned items. This isn't to say food shouldn't be a concern. A lack of food will lead to cognitive issues and a reduction in overall comfort. Since your brain is your best survival tool, again, it gets slightly higher placement than the 3-week fact might indicate. And nobody wants to be hangry in the zombie platypus apocalypse. Health means merely first aid supplies and related skills. If your medical skills exceed first aid, I leave this up to you and your capable hands for further consideration of what that means. Security covers your awareness of your surroundings as well as your ability to fend off danger. Mobility goes along with security in that it is your ability to get away from threats and travel to safety. This is as much about your person as it is your vehicles. Just saying. Contact is a complicated topic. Human beings start to lose their marbles if they go too long without human contact. I don't expect you to end up stranded on a deserted island. That's really not the kind of stuff that we get into around here. So, for our purposes, contact is your ability to send and receive information. Your ability to transmit information can be what leads to your rescue if such an issue arises. It can also be what keeps you aware of your surroundings and what's going on in the world. Information relates to any data or instructions. This includes things like maps, personal information packets, and anything to help aid in your knowledge base. You can only reliably hold so much information accurately in your head at any one time. And you may need to share information with others. Moving on to the review and reconsider. Review and reconsider your preps often and at regular intervals. Story time. Recently, my wife came home and informed me her truck told her that tire pressure was low in a rear tire. She then asked if I could check it out. This event promptly demonstrated a hole in our preparedness. A, my wife didn't have a tire pressure gauge in her truck. B, she didn't know how to use one or how to air up her tires. So I asked my wife if I could show her how to check her tire pressure, find the correct pressure she needed to use, and air up the tire. Guess what happened next? I went to my truck for a tire pressure gauge and found it missing from my glove box. Fortunately, I had a spare stored next to my air compressor. However, the last time I reviewed my preps a few months ago, I didn't check my entire car kit. I checked the big kit, but I didn't check my glove box and my repair kit. After all, I hadn't touched it, and nothing should be missing, right? Wrong. This is where reconsider comes in. There are a few questions to ask yourself. 1. Is what I have sufficient or appropriate based on anything new I've learned since the last time I reviewed my preps? 2. Should I add or subtract anything? 3. Is there a simple way to avoid an issue I've experienced related to what I'm reviewing? In my tire pressure example, the answer came out like this. 1. What I have is not sufficient, obviously. There should have been a backup air pressure gauge somewhere in my truck. It should have also been located where I'd remember it and be unlikely to be found by others with sticky fingers. My wife's truck needed a gauge and a backup. Plus, my wife needed to learn some basic vehicle maintenance by being invited to learn. 2. I've already decided to add a backup gauge to my truck, but I also realized I failed to replace the self-jump pack I'd meant to replace after my last review. Naughty Aaron, naughty Aaron. 3. I needed to add the glove box tire pressure gauge to the things that I check during a regular review. It might be a good idea to check it each time the vehicle goes in for service too, since this is not the first or third gauge to go missing. One last time, review and reconsider your preps often and at regular intervals. Final point, where most new preppers go wrong in a big way. Start simple. Prepare for the most likely before preparing for the least likely. The fact that this is a repeating theme should be obvious, even to those in the cheap seats. Hey, I get it. I've seen me do it too. Here's the thing. Most people come to preparedness or survivalism because something scared the crap out of them. An event or an idea jolted you from your slumber and caused you to take a long, hard look at the world. Suddenly, you put thrusters to full and try to prepare for the zombie platypus apocalypse. The newly discovered mindset usually includes such hits as building a bug-out bag to run off to the woods, live off the land, and join the rebel forces to take the zombie platypus apocalypse head-on. Always a classic. Yet, you don't have life insurance to ensure your family is provided for if something happens to you. Or you're not prepared to take care of that low tire pressure problem. You'll often hear people say, hope for the best and prepare for the worst. It's a cute soundbite, but it doesn't do anyone any favors when it comes to being prepared in a practical and meaningful way. Take care of the simple stuff before getting up to fight the zombie platypus scourge. And that's all I got to say about that, damn it. Actually, I'm kidding. We'll do some more Back to Basics episodes over the coming months since people have been requesting them a lot. And if this episode caused you to think there might be some things in your car kit that are missing, I've included some links in the show notes. We get a little something for the effort from Amazon, and it doesn't cost you any extra when you use our links. Please do so. And speaking of, show notes, resources, and links from this episode can be found by going to intherabbithole.com/E281. Or if you're watching this on YouTube, just look in the description section below this video. And speaking of YouTube, if you're watching this on YouTube, be sure to do all that YouTube stuff. Throw us a like, subscribe, and slap that bell around because bananas are yellow. With that, we wrap up episode number 281 from the Lone Star State. Till next time, stay safe and sound.